OpenAI acquires popular tech talk show for low hundreds of millions of dollars. This is a real headline from this past Friday talking about the acquisition of a popular YouTube channel called TBPN.
Welcome to Technology Brothers, the most profitable podcast in the world. We are live on YouTube.
They were bought out by OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, for, like it said, low hundreds of millions of dollars. But when you look closer, they have 70,000 subscribers, 34,000 followers on Instagram. So that begs the question, what's the value in TBPN, and why was OpenAI willing to pay $100 million to acquire this duo? It goes without saying that this is a big deal in the creator industry and the creator economy as a whole. So in this episode, we're going to be diving in, sharing everything you need to know, from what TBPN is to how their format is breaking YouTube, and ultimately what this means for the future of how you can make money as a creator on YouTube. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Creator Playbook. All right, let's start with the basics. What is TBPN anyways? So this is a tech talk show hosted by John Coogan and Jordy Hayes. The format is completely different from what we've seen on YouTube over the last few years. Basically, every single day, Monday to Friday, they go live on their YouTube channel for 3 hours, talking about niche info, news, and interviews within the tech and business space. Now, their format has completely reinvented YouTube because it's not built for scale. It's built for niche, it's built for depth, and it's built for ultimately a very fine community. So when you look at their subscriber counts, you see 70,000 subscribers on YouTube, an average of 3,000 to 5,000 views on each of their live streams, and only 34,000 followers on Instagram. They kind of appear as like a sleeper channel, something that you may have never heard of, but ultimately they're succeeding greatly because of the people that they're speaking to. So when you think about tech, you might think about the big companies. You might think of the CEOs, right? Like the Zuckerbergs, the Elon Musks, these like big players, these flashy names, but ultimately behind those companies, there are millions of people working as engineers, working in the business end of the business, right? And this show is really designed for those people to have an outlet to learn about the industry. Now, sure, they've had interviews with Mark Zuckerberg. They have had the flashy names on, but ultimately, they're talking about very specific things that most people who are not insiders to the industry, they wouldn't know about it. They wouldn't understand, right? So for example, their most popular video is an interview with a developer who was caught having remote jobs with multiple different companies. This is something that if you're not in the either engineering, the tech, the business space, you might have completely missed. Somehow I picked it up. I don't know why. So the vision with this channel is to be the niche tech and business show. They're not trying to speak to everyone. They're speaking to a very specific set of people. And ultimately that set of people that they're speaking to also has massive influence on the future of an entire industry. And that's why it's shifting YouTube as a whole, because traditionally on YouTube, the goal was to chase those vanity metrics. You wanted to increase your viewership, your subscriber count, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But even in this space, in the YouTube growth space, there are creators now who are ultimately making millions of dollars without having large audiences. Take, for example, Ed Lawrence. He's a creator who sells online courses, coaching, a community basically, and he's made millions of dollars despite the fact that his current primary channel has somewhere in the range of 100,000 subscribers. You might think that you need Mr. Beast level viewership to actually make money on YouTube, but that's just not true anymore. Ultimately, YouTube is a platform with leverage because you can speak to a specific set of people and make a difference. You can make an impact. You can build relationships, and that's exactly what TBPN does. They've been able to build trust with their audience. They've been able to show that they're insiders to the space, that they know what's happening, they have connections in the industry, and as a result, they've gotten the interest of other people who are in the space, and they got them paying attention, and they've built up a deep level of trust within them that can convert to sponsorships. At a broader level though, if you look at the YouTube space, like let's take a couple examples of channels, let's say Veritasium and Johnny Harris, who are two channels that I really enjoy watching. These creators have started to create really long form content and to dial back their level of quantity. So there's a shift happening on YouTube that longer form content is getting more popular. The longer your video is, the more watch time it seems to have. And that's part of a broader shift towards short form video, where now that we have short form covered, people are willing to engage more long format with their preferred long form creators. They've had their short form fix filled, so those David Dobrik 4-minute and 20-second videos no longer do it for the long form pieces of content. Even David Dobrik has gone more long form. So we see creators pushing 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes with their videos, but TBPN is like almost the antithesis to that new strategy of less is more, because they are giving you more time, more depth, more industry information, and they're doing it every single day through a live format. So TBPN is a brand new style of show, something that YouTube's never really seen. We've seen live streams. We've seen creators who post long form content, but we've never seen a channel that genuinely shows up every single day with a niche audience to engage them with depth that frequently. Instead of focusing on vanity metrics like views and, trying to chase a new subscribers, really what we should be doing is focusing on time spent and building up relationships with our audiences, because that's what the data is pointing towards as being valuable in this current phase of YouTube. So ultimately, zooming out, what is TBPN? It's a daily live talk show talking about tech and business news, and they've been able to fill a gap on YouTube that is looking for both time spent, audience duration of watch time, and depth with quantity. They are showing up every single weekday, and they're showing up with depth, with time, with nuance, and that's why they're standing out so much in this phase of YouTube. Every single day, there are 20 million videos posted to YouTube. And so by being unique, by standing out, by having a new offering, they are able to stand out from other creators, not even in the space, but just generally across YouTube. So now that we've talked about the premise of the show, it's important that we also dive into their economics, their finances. But before we dive in, I quickly wanted to let you know that I send out free weekly emails covering stuff like this every single Monday. I don't normally talk about stuff like this in my videos and my episodes. So if you want to get those delivered straight to your inbox, it's the top link in the description. You can sign up completely for free, and I'll email you news like this as it's happening so you can stay ahead with trends on YouTube. All right, let's dive into the economics of TBPN and how it's changing YouTube. What you need to know is that last year, TBPN made $5 million from ads alone. Not AdSense. We're talking about sponsors on their content in their live streams and that represent their show. You can see that in their videos, they have a presenting sponsor. They wear merch that has the logos of their sponsors on it. It's like having a sports team, or like an F1 team is the way that Colin and Samir described it. And on top of that, throughout their episodes, they have sponsors littered throughout, for lack of better terms, sort of like any other podcast or live show would. The truth is that by having time spent, by having a niche depth audience, and by having 3,000 to 5,000 people who tune in every single day, there's a chance for them to see new sponsors, new brands every day just by showing up to these live streams. And so they've been able to have a lot of success with advertising, with sponsorships on their content. And this year they were on track to hit $30 million. You heard me right, $30 million with 70,000 subscribers through sponsorships alone. And the only way you can do that is by having a large inventory of content to sell, which means multiple sponsors per episode, as well as multiple different options for sponsorship, as well as a niche audience that is willing to buy. I've honestly overlooked sponsors way too much on my main channel content. I was always focused on creating like the best possible product, but it's shown me that like with the amount of data we have out there, with the amount of depth and nuance you can have with an audience, sponsorships are vital to growth on YouTube right now. It's so hard to compete with other creators who are getting sponsored because they have funding to help them produce content. But what this is showing me is that it's not really about those vanity metrics anymore. Because if you look at the Mr. Beasts of the world, right? A few years ago, he was charging millions of dollars for every ad integration in his videos. And so when you have that level of cost, that level of like reach, it's really hard for brands to justify spending their budgets on those creators, because those creators are going to eat up their entire quarterly or maybe even yearly budget for creator marketing. When you see a format like TBPN, where you have this super niche, super depth audience, let's say, they're tech and business podcast, right? They're a tech and business show. If there's a finance brand or a business brand or a tax brand or anything of the sort, they have a ton of value in marketing with that show. Even if the rates are expensive, there's more depth there. It's the antithesis of the strategy that we've seen across YouTube for years now. Because ultimately, MrBeast doesn't really have many videos that are sponsored anymore because of the sheer cost to get in one of his videos. And from my experience having worked with brands who have also worked with MrBeast, I've heard from experience that it's really hard to measure the value of those campaigns because the audience is so broad, it's so spread out. With MrBeast, you're targeting people all over the world. And so if you're a US brand or a US app, having that level of creator who reaches so many people across the world, it's not really going to benefit you as much as if you're targeting a US based creator with your US app who's, appealing to a US tech and business audience. There's so much nuance and depth within TBPN's audience that it allows them to sell sponsors at rates that previously would have required a ridiculous level of viewership. And when you think about it, let's be real here. How many people do you think are watching the morning news every single day in your local area? It's probably not that many more than the people who watch TBPN. Maybe I'm completely misguided here, but ultimately a lot of people don't have cable. A lot of people don't have the ability to even tune into the morning news, and yet they still get sponsored because they're appealing to a local audience within your community, and as a result, they can get local brands to show up and spend money for sponsorships. Who is your local audience? That's really what TBPN did. They created a local audience on the internet appealing to tech and business insiders, tech and business industry people that would ultimately be that small community that brands would be willing to pay to show up in front of. It's like if the hair salon down the street decides to pay money to be sponsored in your local news, what about the finance app that's looking to get more tech and business people in? It's really just like a local marketplace at scale on the internet. I think it's interesting though, because as a creator, I've really overlooked how I've made money, but it's important that you consider the business behind your content if you're looking to become a full-time creator, if you're looking to build a business behind creating. And so with my main channel, a lot of the time it was a creative outlet, but now I'm really thinking about the business behind it with sponsorships and how I'm going to monetize that channel. It's really important that you have these intentions going in, because ultimately it doesn't take that much now for you to get results. But the problem is that if you're just winging it, right? You want to get sponsorships, but you're like, they'll come when they come, they'll reach out to me, and you don't have a very niche audience. It's going to get harder and harder for you to sell, and that's when you compete on the vanity metrics. Ultimately, my main channel is designed to reach a larger pool of people, and that's why I started this channel, so I could talk about very niche topics. I am highly doubtful that this video is going to get over 1,000 views, and I'm completely fine with that, because I want to speak to creators who are in the phase of going from, creating content for fun to creating content as a business. That's my audience on this channel. It's very niche, and I'm totally fine if this video doesn't get 1,000 views, because it's not meant for everyone. And so when you can stop playing the numbers game, you can stop playing the vanity metrics game, it completely changes the way you approach YouTube. It completely changes the way that your business operates on YouTube, and it opens up a lot of opportunity. That's what TBPN is doing to change YouTube economics, to change the creator economy. And that was only step one, because as we mentioned, they just got acquired. So let's talk about that. Okay, so there wasn't any data disclosed on the numbers of how much TBPN was acquired for, but an insider did say that they were acquired for low hundreds of millions of dollars, which, knowing that they were on track to make $30 million this year, that does make sense if they're selling out their business to another company. OpenAI acquired TBPN, again, like we said, for low hundreds of million dollars. And the question really is why? Why would they do that? Is it to buy out editorial insight? Is it so that they can have bias for people in the tech and business space? Ultimately, I don't think so. John Coogan and Sam Altman have had a relationship for a long period of time, and ultimately OpenAI is in a bit of a weird transitional phase, right? Where, OpenAI they killed Sora. They were potentially exploring ads on Sora as their feed as a way to make money. OpenAI needs marketing support, and who better to appeal to than the ones who have created a show that dominates the space that OpenAI is in. Ultimately, OpenAI acquired TBPN not for editorial bias, but to get access to people who have clear marketing insights, who can clearly create a movement. It's about the brains behind the operation, not as much the content at the face of the operation, at the front lines, so to speak. With OpenAI acquiring TBPN, my hunch is that we're going to see more brands really approaching creators for marketing insights, especially, moving into the late half of the 2020s. Creator marketing we're not talking about whether creator marketing is valuable anymore. We're talking about what is valuable about creator marketing and how brands can show up on social media to stand out. As a creator, it's important to think about your opportunities as well, because your opportunities don't just exist in a vacuum of sponsorships, affiliates, and selling your own products. I know of creators, specifically Max Fosh. He mentioned in an interview with QuickBooks that he does consulting with various brands on their marketing strategy as a backup plan for if YouTube ever disappears, which I don't really see happening for him. As creators, we have a skill that is very valuable to brands. If you think about it, these executives don't know how to appeal to different people on social media. Look at the McDonald's CEO and his recent campaign. I think that says enough, right? As creators, we have this skill that brands are going to be willing to pay for. And even in my own experience, through growing my own channel, I found it really easy to pitch a show to my local news network because I had experience of being able to gather audience on my YouTube channel already. This skill is really valuable. And you have a lot of opportunities that exist, whether it's selling your channel out to another company or not. There's opportunity for you to do consulting and to find other ways to make money if sponsorships isn't what you're going to do right now, or affiliates isn't making enough money. Creator economy is huge. There's so much opportunity out there. There's so many different pathways that you can take. And so I think that this is just an example of how valuable this skill is to other people right now, and to businesses. And seeing that it's been valued at $100 million+ for this niche audience, it shows, again, the power of niche building versus trying to reach for those vanity metrics, right? We saw the wave of podcasts being acquired a few years ago. Call Her Daddy, Joe Rogan Experience, for example. But now what we're seeing is that niche and small community audiences are far more valuable than anything else. Biggest takeaway from TBPN is that YouTube is changing, formats are changing, and the creator economy is changing. And as a creator, your best move is to focus on building up a niche audience instead of trying to be the loudest, have the biggest audience, have more impact, have more depth, and that pays off so much. It pays off in dividends, which we've clearly seen with TBPN. Curious to hear what you think, though, as a creator. If there's anything from this that's changing your plans as a creator, feel free to let me know down in the comments. With that said, like I mentioned earlier, I have a free newsletter. Feel free to sign up for that down below. And right now, complete side note, if you're still watching, I'm actually taking on new spots to work with me one-on-one. So if you're interested in that, I have another link for that in the description. But with that said, if you've watched to the end of this episode, you're going to want to check out this episode right here, where I tell you the 5 best ways to make money on YouTube in 2026. See you over there.